Okay, well, hi everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm super excited to have Jill Cox here with us today. She is a wonderful, wonderful director that's been with the company 11
11.
years, right? So she's seen a lot, super experienced and full of wisdom. I actually attended a training of hers right after I promoted to team leader, and it like revolutionized my business. And so I'll always have a special place in my heart for Jill for that, for teaching me so much, even not being on my team. So I'm really excited today because I think we are going to learn a lot from her about leadership and intentional leadership, right?
Right, intentional leadership. So,
Go for it.
ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I am going to screen share. Okay, and I got to move the faces because otherwise I'm like looking to see your faces the whole time. And then I feel like I'm like this instead of talking at you, not at the screen. Anyway, so I hope this is beneficial for you. I feel like Erin and Jordan are really good examples of leading with attention in the way that they run their businesses. And so hopefully there will be something that they haven't already taught you here. And if not, it's a good reminder. I know that like every time that I work on a presentation or think through what I'm going to say, I always am reminded of things that I already know in my head, but I forget about them. I forget to do them. So anyway, so at the very least, hopefully it's a great reminder for all of us. Do you guys, can you hear me okay? Okay. Sometimes people are like, I can't hear you. I don't know what's wrong with my speakers. Okay, so there is an awesome leader on my team. She's really smart. She's really funny. She's really hardworking. She wasn't the fastest starter ever, but once she did start, she's been really consistently hitting goals as a consultant and even as a new team leader. And after she promoted, her sales just kept getting better and better. She was really encouraging on our team page. She would rock it when she was the question answerer during a peek inside. Like, you know, she would just do amazing. But she hadn't promoted out a leader. And I would talk to her about it and tease her about it a little bit. And she'd say, you know, well, I want to, I need to do that, but it just really hadn't happened. Some things changed, and since May, she has promoted out 4 leaders. She has 5 in month 1 right now. Her goal that she's working on is to promote out 12 leaders by May of next year. So 12 leaders in 12 months. And I think she's going to do it. And so I recently asked her what had changed. Like, what did she attribute that success to? And she said, oh, sorry, I'm like shedding. She said she was laser focused, broke it into baby steps, started talking to people daily, believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. She started paying attention and noticing things. So basically, she just got intentional. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is leading with intention. So to begin with, if you will just think about the word intention and what synonyms or definition, either way works, what comes to your mind? And you can either, I was going to have you type it in the chat, but I forgot you can't I can't see the chat. If you'll unmute and just tell me what word or words come to mind when you think about intention.
I think probably deliberate comes to mind first for me.
Yeah, that's the first thing for me too.
Purposeful.
Purposeful. If you look up intention in the dictionary, purposeful is one of the words, one of the part of the definition. Any other ideas?
I think of focus.
Yes, focus is a great one. Focus is a great one. One other one that, does anyone have any other?
I would say vision.
Vision is great, and we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. Any others? Okay, so one of the ones that some of my team members said once when I was doing this training with them is they said not an accident, on purpose. And I thought that was a really good way of defining it, because here's the thing. there are so many opportunities in UBAM, and there's so many things that we can do, like creative ways of marketing and different types of events. It is possible to just like put your head down and work. And you could do that 24/7, honestly, like, and you'd still probably like be finding new fun things to do. But if you do that, are you really, if you have your head down and are just working, are you really doing the things that are going to move you to where you want to be? And so will you be creating, the paycheck, the opportunities, all those kinds of things that you really want? But when you act intentionally, you know what the result is that you're shooting for. And so you're just more likely to get it because all of your actions are focused towards that end. So we're going to start by talking about what are your intentions. And sorry, I know that you can see the side, but I can't, it drives me nuts. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do the slideshow because I just remembered some of these. Okay, hopefully. Sorry, I hate doing full screen on Zoom because it's so hard.
Actually, we could see it. We could see it fine if you don't want to do that because I know then you can't see us, right?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to do that again. Okay. So, what are your intentions? So the first thing that you need to talk about in order to figure out your intentions is your why. Why are you doing this UBAM thing? Now, you might be thinking something like for the money or to put my kids in dance lessons, to pay for a car payment, for fun. And those are all benefits of the UBAM leadership. They are all awesome. But honestly, you could find other ways to have fun. And there are other part-time jobs out there that you could do to make money. So why are you doing this? And how does it relate to your purpose in life? Knowing this isn't just helpful, it's really, really essential. I think it's critical for long-term success because in this business, you've probably already experienced it on your path to leadership. There are ups and downs, and some ups last a year, and some downs can last a long time too. And some days you're feeling it and you're all in, and other days you're just not. And so when you have a why, when you know why you're doing it, it makes the everyday decisions easier. What should I do during my working time today? You can know how to do that better if you know why you're here. And it also, of course, makes the big decisions, should I go to convention or ELC, things like that, easier too. So maybe you guys already know exactly why you're here, and I hope you all do, but just in case there's someone that isn't 100% sure why, let's talk about why statements for a minute. So a why statement is a sentence that clearly expresses your unique contribution and impact. So we're just going to define a couple of words. Impact is the difference you want to make in the world, and contribution is the main way you will make the difference. So a why statement should be simple, it should be clear, it should be actionable, it should be focused on the effect that you want to have others and expressed in affirmative language that resonates with you. It should make you feel oh, that's good, and a why statement is written to your contribution so that. So for example, if someone wanted to ensure that the planet was a healthy and safe place for the future generations, and they thought that, inspiring kids to be smart and innovative was the way to do that, they might say to inspire creativity in children so that together we can innovate in ways that benefit our planet and humanity. Someone else might believe that creating opportunities for people to work hard and to learn is the way to pull them out of poverty and help them reach their potential. So they might say to help families achieve the means and gain education and experience that will open the door for ongoing learning and personal growth. So whatever your why statement is, it's never just about a job. It's about who you are, you as a person, and what's important to you in your heart. But something that I love about this job is no matter what your why is, there are ways to meet that through UBAM and to fulfill it. So for example, if you want to improve education in our country, you can do that through UBAM. If you want to help kids develop curiosity and love learning, you can do that for UBAM. If you want to empower women and help them have confidence and feel strong and independent, you can do that through UBAM. If you want to help people feel loved or safe or like bring world peace, pretty much everything you can do with UBAM. UBAM is a vehicle. And those reasons I gave are not an exhaustive list. So how do you discover this elusive why statement? So, sorry, I have a cold. So I'm sorry if I cough and have to take a lot of drinks. I'm just glad that I have a voice today. Okay, so the first thing, there's some different ways that you can discover your why statement. And one of them is through a program that Simon Sinek teaches. He has a book, it's called Find Your Why. And it's sort of a book. It's not one that you just like sit down and read. It's actually more of a program, anyway, it's hard to describe. So you can buy that if you want, but let's get a jump start on this discovery process, and we'll talk about 3 other ways that you can do that. So here's the first one. The first one is think about 5 to 10 experiences that you had that have had a great impact on the way that you make choices, the way that you think, who you are as a person, all that kind of stuff. And then you're going to jot down, this experience in short words. Later, you are going to get a friend, and it should be someone you trust, but it should not be your best friend, and it should not be your spouse. Because your best friend and your spouse, you've already told them so much, and they already have so many experiences with you that they kind of already have preconceived notions about who you are, if that makes sense. So you want it to be someone that you sort of know, but you don't know, really closely. Obviously, you have to kind of be able to trust them because you are going to get vulnerable. You are going to go into great detail and describe these experiences and what you were thinking and feeling, and especially the feeling. During this process, they will jot down notes, and after they're done, you can go back and they will look for patterns. And it's helpful for them to be the ones to look for the patterns because you kind of already have preconceived notions about yourself too. And so it might open it up a little. Okay. Sorry. Go find Dad. Go find Dad. Where's Dad? Okay. Go in my room. Okay. Just go wait for him. What?
Me hungry.
Dad's making you lunch. Hurry.
But
Sorry, guys.
I'm too hungry. I have to wait.
Okay, go ask Daddy. He can maybe get you something while he waits. Hurry. Oh. Sorry, I thought I was looking out. This happens to me every time I am a guest speaker.
Me too. It's okay. And I was talking and I realized I was on mute, so you couldn't even hear me, but I totally get it.
Yeah, I was like, oh yes, Jeremy's going to be home today. I'm not going to have that usual kid interruption. Nope.
Okay.
Okay, go take the wind-up books out into your room. You can play with them in your room. Anyway, so that's one way. A faster way, and this is one that really helped me the most, is think about the last time that you were so fulfilled by work in UBAM and then also in previous jobs that you had. When was the last time you were so fulfilled you're like, I would do that day for free? And then think about another time where you were like, oh man, I love this. I would do that for free. And then the last way is to fold a paper in half. And on one side, you'll write your favorite things about UBAM and volunteer work you do, any other jobs you've held. And the other side, you'll write your least favorite things. And then you go through and make a list of those really quickly and see what they have in common. So, So after you have your why statement down, you can more effectively, and we're not going to spend a lot of time doing this right now because you really do want to give it some thought. But after you have your why statement down, you can more effectively develop and articulate a vision for your team. And that's why I love that someone said vision as the word they thought of with intentionality, because that it's definitely true. So your vision is your aspirations. It's basically what you want to do as a leader. It's like, where do you intend to lead your team? That's your vision. So as you contemplate this, you can ask yourself a few questions. You might say, what do I want my business to look like in 10 years? Where do you want to be when you're doing that? And I actually do want you to take a minute. I was going to have Erin ask you to bring a paper, and I forgot. So go ahead and jot down some ideas for a minute and ask yourself these questions. You know, what do I want my business to be like in 10 years? Where do I want to be? What do I want my team to look like in 10 years? And while you're thinking, I'm going to just tell you some things to keep in mind. One of the most important things is your past is not your potential. What you have done or haven't done successfully in the past. Hey, Sophie, if you are going to do that wind-up book, you have to take it out, or that busy book. Take it out. Hurry. So what you have done or haven't done doesn't determine what you can do in the future. Another thing to think about is, what would it mean for you and your family? Like, really think about that. And would it mean more fun? Would it mean more freedom from debt? Would it mean greater opportunity for your kids, family memories, less financial stress? And then you also want to think what that would, will you shut the door too, sweetie? Shut the door, Soph. What would that mean for your team members and their families? So I'm just going to give you a second to think on that, and I'm going to go shut my door. Okay, so you've had a few seconds to think. Obviously, that's not enough time. So you'll definitely want to pour some thought into this, but hopefully you have something of a starting place, because the next thing that you're going to do is turn that vision into turn that vision into a big goal. And your big goal shouldn't be something that you can easily do in a month, but it also shouldn't be something that's going to take you 10 years either. So it kind of needs to be like an in-between goal, but big. It's basically what you are going to do to make your vision happen. And a great question that David Novak, if you've ever read the book Taking People With You, he also wrote great one. But he has a great question for coming up with a big goal. And it's, what's the single biggest thing you can imagine that will grow your business or change your life? So think about that for a second. What is the single biggest thing that you can imagine that will grow your business and change your life? And as you contemplate this, you might think about something, and that thought comes into your head, and it might scare you a little. It might give you butterflies in your stomach, or you immediately start telling yourself, that's too big, that's not possible. Or you even might say, I don't even want to write this down, because then if I don't do it, I'll be disappointed. All of those things are a good sign that you're on the right track, because a big goal has to be something that you really want. It has to be something that's going to inspire you, and it has to be big enough to include everyone on your team. So setting a goal to promote out one team leader in the next year, that's not a big goal. That's not going to include all those people on your team who want to promote out. I'm sure that you already have more people than that, and you will meet people. A big goal should be one that forces you to change the way that you're acting now. Change the way that you're working and thinking and acting now. And that's another reason why it's so big. It's so important that it's big, so that it will force you to change. Because unless you are like 100% happy with how everything is going in your business, if you want more, you need to do what's called a step change. And a step change requires big goals. So let me give you an example of how this all works together. I think I have this on a slide. Yes. Okay. So my why statement is still a work in progress. I actually bought Simon Sinek's book and tried going through it. And my husband told me I was too green. Whenever I talk about, experiences in my life and stuff like that, I just describe what happened and what I was thinking. And he's like, you need to talk about what you're feeling. And I'm like, I did. I said, and he's like, no, that's what you're thinking. Anyway, so it may not be spot on, but I'm working on it. And actually, well, I'll tell you in a second. So anyway, so my why statement is to educate, instill hope, and inspire those around me so that we can all come closer to reaching our divine potential. This little quote from Winnie the Pooh is like, I pretty much believe that. And not only do I think that we're braver and smarter and stronger than we know now, I think we have the potential to become even more brave and smarter and stronger than we can even possibly imagine. And so I love being part of people uncovering that potential. That's where I find meaning, whether that it's helping kids unlock their potential through our books, or my team members unlock their potential through the business opportunity. It's what excites me. And the way that I realized this was thinking about what job I would do for free, what days of my job would I do for free. And there were the first day that popped into my mind was like at the end of the month, when there's people pushing for those last minute sales that they need. And this had happened very recently on my team, where there were most people had already met month 2, but there was one girl who hadn't yet, and we had a promotion group going on, and she was on the verge of giving up. And her leader was on the verge of giving up. And that promotion group just rallied around them. And that girl ended up doing, starting at noon that day, doing a book drive to help her last recruit reach Success Bound. And her and this recruit, they just worked so hard on it. And in the end, they had like $20 extra, and they turned it in at 11:30. And it was just like, and all the other people in the month 2 group were like cheering for them. And like, I don't know if you ever had a moment where your kids like accomplish something or do something and you just get this parent payoff. For me, that was a leader payoff. Like, to see my team rallying around each other and how much growth happened in every single one of them through that experience. And then the other thing, I would do that for free. And every month, last day of month, since then, I think I would do this for free. I love promotions. The other thing I would do for free is reach for the stars. And when the kids come in and they tell you how many minutes they read, and, I set my goal to be 1,000 minutes, but I ended up reading 1,500. Like, I would do that for free every day. So anyway, so I realized that like helping people reach their goals and watching them overcome obstacles, that's inspiring to me. That's addicting. And I want that for my kids. And I want them to have the opportunity to develop talents and reach their potential and everything like that. So that means that I need to, one, have money to be able to provide them with those opportunities, and for us to eat so that I don't have to I don't know how we would eat otherwise. But also they need a mom that is more available for them. And I have some chronic health issues, and I'm a bit of an introvert. So when I do like an elementary school book fair, I come home and I get in bed for the rest of the day. Like, that's all I can do. So I know that a traditional job would not work for me, because if I did, I would come home from work and I would get in bed, and like my kids would not know me. So my vision has to be something that provides enough income in a way that I'm still able to be there for my family. And so my big goal to make that happen is 15 first line directors. Now, right now, I have 2 directors in my downline. Neither of them is a first line. I actually don't even have 15 first lines right now. But I know that my past is not my potential. And I had to create a vision that was big enough for room for all of my current first lines to be able to achieve it. And then future ones, and like 15 first lines might not even be enough. Like, I don't know. That might not be high enough, but it felt like a good starting place. So here's the thing. It doesn't matter what vision you have for your team, because we have maybe very different ones. Regardless of that, the steps are going to be the same that are going to lead us to achieve it. We're always going to need to be awesome consultants. We're always going to need to be focused on promotions. So we are a ways into this presentation, and I understand that many of you are probably thinking to yourself, like, this is great, this is fine, this is warm and fuzzy, but what do I really need to do? Like, give me a system on how I do this. How do I make it work in my everyday life? And I promise I will share some tips here in a minute, but whatever tips I share, whatever system I share, whatever system you might come up with on your own, in order for it to actually work, you have to know why you're doing what you're doing. You have to be emotionally bought into it, because it takes willpower to do stuff that we don't want to do. And I don't know about you guys. Like, I wake up every morning thinking this would be a good day to just like lay in bed and watch Netflix and eat chocolate. That's what I want to do, but that I can't do that. And so in order to be effective, I have to spend a lot of time like talking to myself and telling myself I have to do stuff I don't want to do, like sending booking messages, or even like submitting an order in Order Pro. I don't know why. It's not hard, but it's like one of those things that takes willpower for me to sit down and close a party. Anyway, so my vision for my team and for my family is what gives me strength to do that. And sometimes, it's hard, and sometimes it's not. And so I have to keep my vision in front of my face every single day. That way, when I see something that's on my little must-do list that I make, I know I'm going to do it, even though I don't want to. And I don't know why or how it works, but just having your vision and having your goals in front of your face just seems to like make them actually happen. I think it might be because our brains start looking for and creating opportunities because they get focused on it. I don't know how it works. But just for an example, I'd been with the company a few years, and I had been a senior executive for a few years. And I was like, I gotta, get beyond this senior executive thing. And so I put on my mirror, on my whiteboard, on sticky notes in the bathroom, I'm a director of $1 million team. And I wasn't close to $1 million team that year, or hadn't been in the past, like not close at all. And, but I saw it every day, multiple times throughout the day. And by the end of that year, I was a director of a $2 million team. We had skipped the million mark. So it works. I mean, that was my example, but I've seen it with my team too. Anyway, so if you've ever felt stuck in your business, if you ever have been in a place where you don't want to be right now, maybe you just feel like you can't get traction and you're not making the progress you want, the very first thing that you need to do before you sit down and start booking parties and inviting people to like a mystery hostess is get really clear on your vision. Where are you going? Where are you taking your team? What will it mean for your family? What will it mean for your team members' family? And then you can figure out how to get there. And when you do that, the work stops feeling like a burden and something you have to get done, and it starts becoming exciting, even stuff like submitting orders. So if you don't, I like this quote, if you don't want to live an ordinary life, you have to be intentional about converting your time into that which you have been called to do. So now we know where we're going. How are we going to get there? Well, you have to use time wisely, obviously. And this is especially important because we have other roles in our life. We are even in our book lady jobs, we are consultants. We are team leaders to our central group. If you have leaders under you, you are leaders to your leadership team. And then we also, of course, have our families and maybe another job or church work or PTA or anything like that. We have all these different roles. And another reason why it's really important is because like in our business, we have the role of consultant and then also like of leader. And for me, team support is where I get like all my fulfillment. I mean, not all of it, but a lot of it. And so honestly, like it's really easy for me to just get in a place where I am supporting my team and I love developing trainings and things like that. And I forget to book parties. So that's bad too, because then that's really stifles my progress towards my goals. And I saw this like the example of this, sadly, perfectly happened on my team. I had a third line leader that went on probation, and I didn't even realize she was going on probation because I usually just check central group numbers, and her central group sales were awesome. And basically we were talking, and she was investing all of her time that she had to work on her team. She was writing trainings, messaging team members. And the thing is, like, she didn't even have to do that because on our team page, our bigger one, we have a lot of awesome trainings going on all the time. Like, she really didn't need to do that, but she wanted to. And anyway, so it's good to recognize that we have to focus on both of those areas. So there are a couple of different strategies. One of them is one I learned from The One Thing. It's called the 411. Basically, the way the 411 works is you set annual goals. You're going to set 1 to 3 goals for your business and 1 to 3 for your personal life. And then after you've set those goals, you're going to prioritize them. Which ones are the most important in both sides? These shouldn't be token goals. They need to be things that are going to move you closer to your big goal, because your big goal is going to move you closer to your vision. So you want them to be the most important thing that you can do to move you closer to that big goal. So in my case, where my goal was 15 first-line directors, my first one is promote out 2 first-line directors. My next one is to recruit 30 people by doing 90 parties. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is break that down each month into a monthly goal. What are the things that you need to do to move you closer to those annual goals? Like, what are the very most important things that you could do? So for me, like, if I'm going to recruit all those people, that means I need parties so that I can recruit them. So maybe holding 8 parties and recruiting 4 people, might be examples, and you'll have a few different ones, and then again, prioritize them. The people at The One Thing recommend using a spreadsheet like this one here that I'm going to show you. And when I'm done, I'll send Erin like a link. I have a template if you really want this spreadsheet, if you feel like it works good for you. I have a template and you can just copy it. It's a Google form, so copy the form and then you can change it however you want. But basically, you'll use this form and each year, month, and week, and then you'll break them into action tasks, daily action tasks. So that's one way of doing it. I am really a paper and pencil person. I am also very visual, and if I don't see it, I forget about it. So for me, what works best is every month I write my big goals on that top corner. If you can see where the calendar is, that's on the calendar page of my planner. And that's where I write my monthly goals. And then on the weekly part, there's another section that's highlighted red. Those are my goals for that week. And then the green is circled, and I've moved that over into my to-do list for that day, if that makes sense. So you want the items in your to-do list to be moving you towards your weekly goals, and you want your weekly goals to be moving you towards your monthly goals. And Another thing that's really important for me, like I said, if I could all day, I would make trainings and stuff, is I have a list and I write it in my planner every single week of the things I'm going to do when I first start working. So first, I hostess coach. Like, I have to do that first. Next, I will do like my booking, recruiting, and customer service, and so on. So those are the things that, that's the order that I'll let myself work. Okay, so I'm not gold first color, but I have just found I work a zillion times more effectively when everything is prioritized. So that is really important to me. Now that we have amazing goals that are going to move us towards this awesome vision, what does it look like in everyday life? Like, what does it look like? How do we get it done? And getting it done can look different at different times. I know it has looked differently for me at different times. It's kind of been based on nap schedules and kindergarten pickup. Like, kindergarten is the worst. Like, oh man, it kills me because anyway, but you can only lead your team with intention if you are leading yourself with intention. So you need to know what you expect from yourself in terms of how you're going to spend your time. And the way that I like to think about this is to expect productivity from yourself, because, you know, Netflix and chocolate, they always feel good in the moment, but too much of it feels icky. And actually, that's actually true of rest. I mean, I need to rest more. Rest and recharge are so important, like incredibly important, but too much of it, if you take too long of a break, you just start like being blah. And instead of it being energizing, it's demotivating. So you need to be intentional about what you expect yourself. You are your own boss. So it's good to think of yourself like as being the kind of employee that you would want to have, because you are employed by yourself, and be as productive as like your ideal employee would be. But then you also want to be the kind of boss that you'd want to be too. And so a good boss gives their employees clear expectations and lots of grace. That's a good boss. So do that for yourself. Give yourself clear expectations and be nice to yourself. Give yourself lots of grace. Be really intentional about how you start your day. I do most of my work, like host coaching and booking and recruiting and stuff like that, working with my team first thing in the morning or right after lunch. And that works for me because to get in the right frame of mind in the morning, the first thing I do, like I read and I write in my gratitude journal before I go to work every day. And after lunch, it's my daughter's nap time. And either my husband or I read her a story before she goes to bed. And so like having that experience of knowing how much she's loving that and that positive experience with the books gets me in a good place too. So both of those times I'm in a good place. And so that's why I need to do my most important work then. It's also good to realize when you aren't going to be in a good place and just know that about yourself. One thing too, so you might be like in this phase of life where everything feels chaotic. And I don't know when that ends. I have been in that my entire time with UBAM. When I started, I had 3 tiny babies. They were all under 3, and I was pregnant. Or no, I think the oldest was 3 and under, and I was pregnant. And it was chaotic, and it's still chaotic. Like, it hasn't gotten better. But there are patterns and rhythms in your day. So you kind of get a feel for like, you know, when your kids usually need you versus when they usually will play independently, when they take a nap or watch a movie. Those are all great times for you to like recognize, oh, this happens, and take advantage of it. So for me, one of my natural rhythms is Friday. I am like so ineffective. At one point, I noticed several Fridays in a row, I had wasted until like 1 or 2 in the afternoon scrolling through Facebook. Like I got on there to host, coach, and support my team, and I was like, everything was taking me so long. And I finally realized I was just going to bag it. And so now I don't do anything on Fridays unless I want to. Like I just do the work I want to do on Fridays. And that meant that I had to stop scheduling parties on Thursdays because I would do these parties on Thursday and then I would bomb the follow-up. Like I wouldn't even get back to the hostess until like Friday afternoon. Like anyway, so I just wasn't wasting parties anymore by bombing the follow-up. And I now do parties Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And I'll do 3 in one day if I have to, but I don't do them on Thursdays. So anyway, but if you feel like you're in this chaotic life, another thing you can do besides identifying your natural rhythms is create them. And Vicki Finan, who is a director as well, she said that she's had many team members who have built their business in 2 hours in the morning before their kids wake up. And I just thought that was such great advice. And the last time she said it, I decided, okay, I've been hearing Vicki say this for a few years. And Amy Smith, I don't know if you guys know who she is. She also is a very successful UBAM leader, and she just said the same. She was doing it 2 hours before they wake up and 2 hours after they go to bed. So the morning I decided to implement it, and now I'm not a morning person like at all. I'm like so not a morning person. It's impossible to describe how not a morning person I am. But I've started getting up at 5 in the morning, and it has pretty much changed my life for the better in so many ways. I get so much done in that time before my kids wake up. And that's the only reason I'm able to start my day by reading and writing in my gratitude journal, is because I get up, a couple hours before my kids. Another thing that's really helpful is time blocking. Oh, whoops, I was supposed to be on this slide, sorry. So time blocking is when you just focus on one task at a time and you're not multitasking, and you schedule your most important tasks so you know when they are going to be happening. Sorry, let me grab a drink. During those times that you are very much a slave to little ones, and their routine can be mostly predictable, but sometimes crazy, sometimes not. For me, what has worked during those phases is just having a prioritized task list and going to bed every night with a prioritized task list. And then I knew when I woke up the next morning, the first chance I had to work, I was going to do this. The first chance I had to work, the next chance I had to work, I would do that. I didn't know when those chances would be, but I knew what I was going to do. So recently, I decided to go back to a more structured schedule. And I have done this in the past. And in fact, I even trained on it before at convention. And it was it worked so well for me for years. But then I don't know what happened. I think I had a baby. And life just got crazy, and I didn't keep up on it. And then the next thing I knew, I wasn't doing it anymore. Anyway, and so I decided to give it a try again. And I know it looks intense and intimidating, and I was dreading making it because I didn't want to be that structured and that forced to do things. But like I said, I knew it had worked for me in the past, so I bit the bullet and I did it again. Adding structure to your day helps you get more stuff done. And also, it's good for your kids. It's good for their brain development, and they'll have fewer temper tantrums because kids thrive off of routine and structure. So another way that you want to be intentional, let's just talk about a few other ways. Oh yeah, this is still here. A few other ways that you can be intentional. One with your time, and one of the biggest ones for me is social media. So I use a timeline eradicator. I don't know if you've ever heard of those, but basically when I'm on my computer, my news feed is blocked. And I installed it on every browser that I have on my computer. If you have Safari, you have to copy in some code in a weird place. It took some researching to figure out how to do it on that one. But basically, it gave me I swear, at least 2 hours back of every day. not having that news feed. I still have it on my phone, so if I want to check my news feed, I can do it on my phone. Another way to be intentional about your time is like where you're working. So I can't work in a room where the laundry needs to be folded. Or I did a party on Wednesday, and my office right now is a mess because I didn't pick up the books after the live because I wasn't feeling great. And so, that's really distracting for me. And so instead of doing my most important stuff, I'll be like picking up the books or folding the laundry or things like that. So just know what distracts you and work around those distractions. Make sure that that you don't see them, kind of block them out. So you got your intentions. Let's talk about some other applications of intentionality. Oops. I accidentally deleted the word, I think, on this slide. But it used to say other applications of intentionality. So you can, when you are working with new team members, you can ask yourself, what's the one thing that you could really help them master that's going to make the biggest difference in your business, and really focus on that until they've got it and then move on to the next one. So for me, I think that's host coaching. So with my new consultants, that's what I want to teach them and instill in them is host coaching. And you also want to be intentional about the standards you set for your availability with your new consultants so that they learn to develop independence and they know that being a team leader is something that they could do, that they can make fit with their life. Because if you answer the question the second it pops up every time they message you, you're just setting yourself up for really a lot of frustration, and you're giving them a bad impression of what a team leader means and what it is in their life. Another way or application of being intentional is with promotions. And we talked about this briefly in the beginning, but if you want to promote more people, you have to intentionally focus on the benefits of promoting. You have to talk about it all the time. You have to pay attention to who's doing what are their numbers. It has to be something that you are focused on. And you're working your entire business towards that end. So when I'm focused on promotions, I'm going into parties thinking I'm looking for future leaders. I am booking parties because I'm looking for future leaders. It has to be an intentional thing. There's a good chance you can promote some people by accident, but that's going to take a lot longer to grow your business and your income than just being focused on it. Be intentional about what you promote or post on your team page. Make sure it's helpful and encouraging and inspiring. Decide what you're going to recognize and how you're going to do it. And that's something I have to be intentional about. I always am thinking, oh, good job, so-and-so, or, so-and-so is doing this. This is awesome. But I forget to tell that person, I see what you're doing and it's great. So that's something that I'm always working on, is telling people good job when I see that they're doing a good job. The last concept I want to share with you is something that, again, it was one of those things that I knew, but I actually got a reminder from Erin about this topic last month or the month before. And I just feel like, oh my gosh, why had I forgotten that? And that is the concept of seasons. And when I'm talking about seasons, I'm not talking about winter, spring, summer, and fall. I'm talking about a time period. So, as a leader, we always need to have a personal business. And sometimes we think we always need to have an incredible personal business. We always need to have a zillion people in our central group. We always need to be promoting leaders. But we are actually more effective when we are focused on being amazing at one thing and okay at everything else. So, for example, the way that this applies in your business is you want to be an amazing consultant for a little bit. You want to have a super full party calendar because that's going to allow you to recruit people. And you enter this recruiting season. And you keep working and recruiting as much as possible. This is like when you're hustling, you're out there hustling, you know. Then that's going to naturally lead you to a training season. So during your training season, maybe you're only doing like one party or maybe 2 parties a week. Like you cut back on the parties you're doing, but you're really focused on all these new people and getting them set up successfully. And that's followed closely by a promotion season. The natural step, you know, the next thing for a well-trained consultant is to become a leader. And so that will lead you to new leader training. So basically, it's kind of like this cycle that you go through. And there aren't 4 seasons in a year. You might go through this cycle in 6 months. You might go through it in a year, just kind of depends. It can be as short as long as it needs to be. And I really learned this lesson when I was put on bed rest with one of my pregnancies. I had been really focused on earning trips, and I wanted to promote out leader. I wanted to promote out or promote to executive. And I had quite a few leaders, but they weren't lined up in the right places. And so right at the end of one trip contest, I was put on bed rest. And this was before Facebook parties. Like, I don't even know if Facebook existed then. Maybe it did on like college campuses. I don't know. That child is almost 8. So anyway, so I had to unload my calendar. I had to give away all my bookings because I couldn't go do them. And that meant I couldn't focus on the trip. Like, I didn't have a way to get sales, the last sales I needed. So I had to like let go, and I hadn't ever not earned a trip before. But I loved UBAM. And so I'm like, well, what can I do? So I started being better about coaching my team and getting them promoted. And by the time I got off bed rest, like 2 months later, the first of the next month, I skipped from senior team leader to senior executive because they finally started promoting because I was focused on it. Does that make sense? I was really intentional about it. And when I was really intentional about trips, I got trips. And when I've been really intentional about promoting, I've gotten promotions, if that makes sense. So that for me was really eye-opening and just showed me the importance of applying seasons in my business. So that is what I have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute. Thoughts, feelings, concerns, anything you want to share? Sorry, this was longer than I thought it was going to be.
This was really good, Jill. Thank you. I took a lot of notes. So how are you I know you have 6 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how are you intentional? And I know family is really important to you. So how are you intentional with the seasons of kids, and especially I think a lot of us have young kids, intentional with balancing the work and your goals for work and your family, reconcile those 2 intentions. Do you have any?
So one thing that really helped me, I was sort of a newish leader, was I was thinking about this a lot. I was even wondering, should I even be doing this? Because, I'm not focused on my kids 100% of the time. And that is my most important work in forever. The most important thing I can do is be a mother. And so, so I was and I was loving it, but I didn't know if it was the best thing for my kids. I was really thinking about it a lot. And I was praying about it. It was this big deal to me. And I just kept feeling I shouldn't quit. I shouldn't quit. I shouldn't quit. And I was just okay, I know I'm not supposed to quit, but how do I make this work? And then one day I was folding to my laundry and listening to a free webinar by someone who of course is trying to get you to pay for their stuff. And she gave this analogy of an orchestra. And I play the violin and the piano, so I can get an orchestra analogy. And she talked about how people try to have balance in their life. And as long as you're striving for balance, you are going to be unhappy. You're going to fail. Because balance, like think about what you have to do to balance on a balance beam. Like you have to be so careful, go slowly. Or if you think about a scale and like, what do you do to make sure things balance in a scale? You know, you like have to, okay, here, you know, it's really hard and it can't move. Like, and life is fast paced and it's changes all the time. And so balance is not possible. And if that's your goal, you're just going to be unhappy always. But what you can do, and this goes along with what we were talking about with seasons, is make your life a symphony. So there are times where a particular child in your family needs a lot of attention. You would be like, we probably like, I'm pretty sure everyone's going to agree that it's okay. Like being a good parent is giving that child more attention at that time than the other ones, even though it's not equal. You know, so there are just times in your life, times in your day, where you need to give something like the solo. They're the one shining at that moment, and everything else in life is background music. Everything else is like this silent accompaniment going along with it. And some instruments take a rest. Like for a couple of measures, they might take like a little rest. So if you have, Shauna Zollinger is one of my upline leaders, and she gave me this great advice when I was a new leader. And she said, if you feel like, you know, this is too much and you want to take off a month, take off a week. Or if you're feeling like you want to take off the whole day, or a whole week, take off 2 days or 1 day. And if you feel like you want to take off the whole day, give yourself a couple of hours like that are yours to do nothing, you know, to do what you want. And like, we don't need as big of breaks as we think we do, but there are times that we just have to rest in something. Honestly, that might be like you rest from cleaning your house and you hire a housekeeper. It might be like your kids eat cereal, you know, for dinner a couple nights a week. Like, it's okay. And one thing I think that's really hard too when we're feeling this way is like guilt. Like we all want to be like perfect moms and perfect wives and perfect business owners and perfect leaders. And like, even if we didn't even have those other roles in our life, if we only had that one thing, we still wouldn't be able to do it perfectly. There would still be things like at the end of the day that we were like, I wish I would have done this, or, you know, we still wouldn't be as effective. And so just give yourself grace. Kids, because my kids started when, my kids were so young when I started. Like my oldest two were in preschool when I started. I've been able to see the benefits, the long-term benefits of this. And that's been really helpful now that I still have a young child. We have all ages from preschool to teenagers in our house. And having that perspective has been very beneficial. So for example, this year in January, my son had to give a talk in church. He was like the youth speaker. And it was the day before. And I was like, are you going to talk? Like, are you ready for this? Like, you know, have you prepared? And he's like, oh yeah, I already know what I'm going to say. I already got some notes written down and everything. And I'm like, well, what's your topic? And he said, it's goals. I was like, well, what are you going to talk about? Like, how did you know what to do? Did you do research? Like, migraine, did you do research? But he said, I knew what to do because I've watched you in your business and I've seen what you do to set your goals. And I've heard you talk to your team. Sorry. And so I realized, you know, maybe like I'm not like a mom that loves to play with my kids. Like, I'm not a playful mom. My husband is awesome that way. He's like a kid himself. He loves playing with kids. Like when my daughter brings me her Barbies, or my son's like, Mom, let's build Legos. I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, I can do this. So I don't think they're gonna have a ton of memories of me playing with them. But there are gonna be other memories that they have of me. And there are other ways that I teach them things, you know, working alongside them. And of course, I mean, that doesn't mean you can just like ignore your kids. But I do think most of us just need to give ourselves some grace because we're actually doing better than we think. And so far my kids have turned out okay. So anyway, but that analogy, sorry, I got sidetracked, but that analogy, that symphony analogy, whenever I'm feeling that, I just like go back to that and just, you know, get real clear, like who needs the starring role right in this moment, and realize it's okay for the other stuff. And sometimes it's my business that needs the starring role, honestly. And especially if you're doing this as like, this is part of your family income. For us, this is our primary income. I make more money than my husband. And so my business has to have some priority in it. It didn't start like that, of course, but anyway. So yeah, sometimes your business needs the starring role. Sometimes it doesn't. Does that help at all?
Yeah, that helps a ton. I love that analogy. And you made me tear up a little bit too, because kids are tough.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, like, if you let yourself go down the guilt road,
yeah,
like, it doesn't matter if you are focused 100% on your kids, like, that's all you do. There's still plenty to feel guilty about. So.
Yeah, I loved what you said too earlier about being an introvert. I had never thought about that before because I feel the same way. And I feel like as an introvert at home with my kids, like they're so loud all the time. But I had never thought of it in context of like, if I was still working, I would still come home exhausted. So I'd rather like be with my kids. If I'm going to be exhausted either way, I would rather be with my kids and be exhausted by my kids than be exhausted and then come home and not spend time with them. So
right. And like, I think about too, if anyone else is an introvert, like, it's just good to be aware of that. Cause, I wasn't for a long time. And so my husband would come home from work and I would like run to my bedroom because I'd been with those kids all day. I just needed quiet. And he's an extrovert. And so he'd come home and he'd be like, why are you hiding from me? Let's talk. Let's have fun together. You know? Anyway, but so for me, like, that's why my daughter who's 5 still has nap time because I need quiet. So any other questions?
I was going to ask, sorry, I missed the beginning, so I'm going to have to come back and listen. But you mentioned, I think you said it was Vicky or someone that you're modeling like the 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. So, so if you do that, does that mean that you are not answering messages or working on your business at all throughout the day? I feel like I don't like how often I'm like back and forth answering messages and things like that, but it also seems, you know, sometimes it is really helpful to be able to respond quickly with host coaching, or like your host that hasn't been getting back to you and suddenly she messages you, or a team member that hasn't been responsive. So, so is it going to be profitable if I just block out the middle of my day and say, I'm, for the most part, not going to respond to things until after bedtime? I'm just afraid of that.
Yeah. So it's actually Amy Smith that does the morning and the afternoon. Vicky is the one that says, you know, wake up 2 hours before your kids. And that's what I do. I don't do like the morning and the evening thing after my kids go to bed because, like I said, my husband's an extrovert. And if I was working at this time, like, you know, where our kids are gone, that would not be very nice to him. Like, that was actually like a realization that we had, like, he hated UBAM for a while. And we realized like eventually that it was because I was working at the time that we were supposed to be spending together. Does that make sense? So I don't do evenings unless I have a party. Or if he's at work. He works in the medical field, and so he works at nights sometimes. So anyway, so if he's at work, then I can be like on my computer all night, and he doesn't care. But I totally get what you're saying. What has worked best for me, and everyone can do different things. Like when I created that time blocking schedule, what worked best for me was to decide when I was not going to work, when I was going to be there and be present for my kids, and like choose that time that I'm not going to work, and then not work during that time. And it just helps me like be focused on what I'm supposed to be focused on when I'm supposed to be focused on it. And as far as like for my kids, it's good for them. The predictability is good. One of my downline leaders has a daughter who is terminally ill. She's actually on hospice right now, not doing well. And she has been sick for like 6 or 7 years, really sick. And so like it's been this long process on their family, and they took their other kids to counseling several years ago, like when they first found out she was going to die. And the thing that the counselor said was, more important than quantity time, kids need predictable quality time. And they said like if they would spend 7 minutes one-on-one with each child in the day, like they've done studies, 7 minutes of one-on-one time when they know when it is, then kids can like cope with so many other things. But they need to know like when that time is. That time is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So for me, like most of my kids go to school. So from 3 until like 8 are the times that I don't work unless I'm sitting at soccer practice, and I might as well, or gymnastics or something, like while I'm in my car waiting for a kid, then I'll like get on my phone. But other than that, I don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I homeschool, so I just probably just need to work on that balance of like get you started on something and now let me do something, because I don't want them, like what you were saying, I don't want my kids to feel like I'm distracted all the time or not giving them their full attention, but they don't always need my full attention. Right. And so I think that's really helpful.
I think that's like actually one of the benefits of this business is like kids learn how to be independent. Like sometimes I've had friends' kids like playing over, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they don't know how to do that themselves. Like, you know, it's good for kids to like, we want to work ourselves out of a job. That's like the goal of parenting. So yeah, Leah Zetterholm is a director on my team, and she homeschools, and I know for her what works. Like she doesn't do her business from 9 till I think about 1. So I know if I need to get a hold of her, I can send her a message at 10 o'clock, but she's not going to see it until then. And so her downline knows that too. And so just like knowing, oh, that's her school time. And maybe, like you said, you know, kids don't actually like need us there. So if her kids are working independently, then she might hop on and not take care of some stuff that she needs to do, but no one's expecting it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then she feels like that can be her primary focus during those hours.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. I hope that helped, but that's what works for me. Choosing when I don't want to work first. Well, it's not like even don't want to, but just shouldn't. Any other questions?
Okay, I'll ask one more question really fast, if no one else has one. You said there at the end how you focused on, when you were focused on earning the trip, you know, you were earning the trip, and then when you focused on promoting out leaders, you know, as your primary, then you were able to do that. So I guess I'm wondering, you know, obviously when you weren't able to do your personal business, that just kind of happened. But how do you, like, I'm not bedridden, so I can do Facebook parties. So how do I feel like I'm trying to focus on promoting out leaders, but my personal business is what I have most control over. So So that's just the easiest thing to keep up. But I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, is there something specific that should shift in order to spend more focus on promoting out leaders?
I think it's, so one thing I should clarify too, the thing that I learned as well, and that I need to frequently remind myself, is if I focus on the trip, I get the trip. If I focus on promoting leaders, I promote out leaders and I get the trip. Because, like, when I'm focused on the trip and when I'm focused on promoting out leaders, I just had this realization again too. When I've been focused on earning a trip, I usually like earn it for 1. When I've been focused on promoting out leaders, I've earned it for 2 with time to spare. So like it happened because you have all these recruits and they're like doing so well. And yeah, so to me. Anyway, so the next like phase that I really focused promoting on leaders or promoting out leaders, like hyper focused on it, I wasn't bedridden either. And Facebook parties were a thing then too. But it was more like in terms of how I was going to spend my time. It was a conscious decision on how I was going to spend my time. And initially that meant that I already had leaders at that point, but that meant I kind of had to leave that, let them just like fend for themselves a little bit. And it's not like they didn't have support or training, but I wasn't checking in with them. I was focused on my hosts. And then from my hosts, I got recruits and I was focused on them and turning them into leaders. So it was really just a conscious choice on where I was going to spend my time. Does that make sense?
So you focused on promoting out new people from the bottom up as opposed to working on or coaching as much with those that were already leaders or who had been, consultants for a while and not doing much.
Right. Yeah. And one of the mistakes that I see a lot in people that say they want to promote out leaders is they go dig into their central group and they start contacting every single person that's in their central group at that time. And, or they'll start, they'll do that. And then they'll also maybe start like, trying to get their current leaders to like be better and do better. And that for me has not been effective. For me, it's been more effective to kind of start fresh with people who are in their incentive period. And the interesting thing that's happened along the way is those people that have been around for a long time either don't change, they're already doing what they're doing now, which is whatever, or they get inspired by these newbies and what they're accomplishing. So rather than trying to change the people I already have, I find it's easier to get new people and kind of mold them into, a future leader.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, like half of my first lines I already had before I had this realization. And the other half I got after that. And it's interesting when I check the numbers every single month, the ones that I had after I got this realization, like they have way higher sales. They promote out leaders more themselves. Like they're more successful than the ones that I like handheld a lot and like tried to push them up. I took care of them almost a little bit too much. I don't know how to describe it, but I didn't inspire them, if that makes sense.
That's so hard though, like helping them, but not helping too much.
I know, that is hard.
Not wanting it more than they do. Like, I don't know, I guess I haven't figured out how to inspire people unless they're just, you know, those people that are naturally inspired, like they just catch the fire themselves, like they're great. But for everyone else that you're like, come on, you do this.
And, you know, and I think you can want it more than they do for a little while. Like one of my strongest first line leaders, she was like amazing from day one. She had her kickoff party was like $1,100 with tons of bookings. Like she was one of those people. And the first 2 times I talked to her about promoting, she didn't want anything to do with it. But I like knew she was going to be awesome, you know? And so, and like even while she was working on the requirements, I know I wanted it more than her. And now, of course, she does great. But I think like it becomes a problem when you're investing more time than they're investing. So it's okay because you know the benefits of UBAM leadership. You're naturally going to want it for them more than they're going to want it for themselves because they don't know how good it is. Like there's so many examples of that in parenting too. Like there's so many things where you want your kids to do something and they're like not sure if they want to do it, but you're like, but it's going to be so good for you. Like I feel like that way about piano lessons, you know, like some kids I'm like, no, you really want to practice. Like it's going to be good for you. But there comes a point like where they have to be willing to invest the time too. So, and that's when it's a problem when if you're like checking in and they're not making progress, then sometimes it's best to just say, okay, you know, maybe later they'll come back to it, but they have to be putting in the work behind it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why like in the cycle, promoting leaders starts with your personal business and recruiting because it's a lot more effective than trying to like resurrect people. Any other questions?
How do you manage your expectations when you're changing your goals from your own personal business goals into leadership and promotion goals? I think Leslie kind of said this a little bit. I struggle with like letting go of that control when it's a goal for your personal business. Like you can go out and do it. You can get the sales, you can get the party bookings. But for promotions, if you have people in your group who are in their incentive period, but they're like, you're wanting it more than they are, they're not putting in the work, like how do you not get frustrated? How do you just move beyond that and keep going to meet those goals?
So one thing that helps me, and I totally get what you guys are saying about personal business. And by the way, like don't ever not work your personal business. Like I think leaders should have, you know, Home Office Challenge 2 as at least their goal, like their focus, their goal. Like they should, you know, we should be doing enough that we at least hit Home Office Challenge 1. You know, like we should have a consistent business or personal business. And one reason why that's so important is so that we can help these people through it. I know that like the more parties I'm doing, the more I'm learning like, oh, this is seeming to work really well. And so then I'm more effective in helping my team. So, you know, obviously don't ever like stop that. But as far as not getting disappointed and things like that, for me, one of the things was that helped was I had to change the way I thought of things and what my goal was. So you guys saw, you know, I have this big goal of 15 first line directors. But that's actually like not really the goal. That's the measure. The goal is growth. And that's a measure. So, one example, one year, I was like really upset about some goals like that didn't happen that year. And it was right before I promoted to director. I wanted to promote to director by we used to have ALR. It's like what ELC is, only sort of It's different. Anyway, it used to be a lead for all leaders in the company. So I wanted to promote to director by ALR. And all the people were in the right places. Like, it was looking so good. All the right people hit month 1. And then, like, we had all this family stuff going on. We were moving. Like, it was just like a really bad time. And I couldn't focus on those people. Like, I wasn't nagging them, basically. And they just didn't have the motivation to finish it themselves. And, like, they didn't even hit month 1 again. Like, they not only didn't promote, but, like, they just they both basically quit, actually. They both basically quit. And so, and one was one that I needed as a personal, no, they weren't. They were both in my downline that I needed. Anyway, so, and then another leader in my first line quit. So then I went down to where I needed another first line leader too. And so I went to ALR. Like, I didn't even want to go because I was farther away from my goal than I had been 3 months before. And that was like all I could think about, really. And I just had this, you know, it was really hard. But I had gone in to the thing a day early, and just to like hang out with some of my friends. And I was rooming, you know, the day early. I was spending the day with Tabitha Roach and Camille Steiner. And Tabitha had just bought this book at the airport. And it was a John Maxwell book about about growth. And basically, like, there was a quote in there. I used to have it memorized because it really, like, changed my life. He said something about, you know, if your goal is the goal, then you're going to get the goal. But if you're, and that, you know, and you're just going to always be measuring yourself by this number standard. And lots of times you'll hit it, and when you don't, you're going to feel terrible. But if your goal is growth, then you're always going to be feeling like you're in a place where you're making progress, and most often you're going to hit that number goal anyway. So anyway, it just changed in my mind. And even though, like, I felt like I had failed totally, they just reminded me, and they forced me to go back into that year. And, you know, what had I done that year? And I was able to see that I did, like, important things. And I had so many other successes as I was working towards that goal. And I had forgotten about them. Like, I wasn't seeing them because all I was focused was on this measure that I wasn't hitting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so basically, like, I don't know, there's not an easy answer. It's just we have to change how we think about it and be focused on growth instead of measures. Because, like, even if, you know, someone doesn't promote that we thought was going to, we learn something about coaching. And, you know, we learn what we did right and what we could do better next time. And so we're always learning and making progress towards the ultimate goal, or the, you know, our potential. Does that help at all?
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I also, like, had to be okay with, like, not earning a trip and, or letting go of not hitting home office challenge 2 every time. Like, you know, I'm shooting for it, but it's okay if I don't. And I still do almost all the time. But I don't let myself let that be my focus, if that makes sense. Any other questions?
I'm going to spin off that a little bit because I feel like it's really applicable to a lot of what I'm seeing with a lot of our leaders. Like, how do you deal with, like, maybe disappointment when you are, like, when you feel like you're doing the right things and you're not finding people that are catching the vision, or it's not happening as fast as you want it to, or you're just kind of in a season of, like, just everything's taking longer and being harder than you thought it would be. Like, how do you, like, stay, I guess, leading with intention, even when it feels like you're not getting anywhere?
Yeah, that's the hard thing. Because you do think, okay, I'm putting in the work, I'm doing the steps that, you know, I'm recruiting X number of people every month. Like, and I can relate to that. Like this year, I've had like not my best recruiting year by any means, but an average one, a decent one. And I have struggled to get people to promote this year. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like doing parties, I'm recruiting, I'm like, you know, walking them through these things. Like, why is it not happening? And there are just some things like that are out of our control. All we can control is what we put into the process and what we learn from it. So like one of the things that's really good for like me is just trusting the process. There was a time a long time ago when I was like going to give up Facebook parties because I had a month where I think maybe one of them hit like $100. And I was just like, that's it. I'm done with these. And they're not working anymore. They're not working. I can't figure them out. I don't know if I'm wasting my time. And I was telling that to my friends, and Tabitha's like, no, just keep doing it. You know, you just got to put it in and know that it will pay off in the end. Just trust that you're doing the right thing and know it'll pay off in the end. And I was just like, fine, I'll give it another month of Facebook parties. The next month, I had like my highest sales month that I had ever had in my time with UBAM. So I don't know if you guys have read The Debt. If you don't have older kids, you might not have. But I read it because I wanted to make sure that my kids could read it. And it's really good. It's one of my favorite series for older kids. And in The Debt, in one point, Dom is the main character, and he's like dropped out in the middle of the ocean. And he's able to, you know, figure out how far he has to swim to make it back alive. And it's like farther than he's ever swam before in his life. And he's thinking like, I do not have the skills. I do not have the stamina. I don't have the skills. This is impossible. But he was an athlete. In the book, he's like a track star. And so he knows about like just trusting the process. And so he focused on what's the process, one foot, you know, one arm in front of the other, scoop down. And he would just talk himself through the process and just tell himself over and over, trust the process, trust the process. And he made it. You know, he made it to the shore. He did something he didn't know he was capable of, and shouldn't have been capable of. And so that's basically what I have to do during those times, is just remind myself to like trust the process. The other thing that helps me is looking around me. And it used to discourage me because I would be like, well, I feel like I'm doing the same things as them. Like, how come they are having success and I'm not, when I'm like doing the exact same thing? And so I just, instead of like feeling like that, I started making a conscious effort to celebrate and ask them what they think made the biggest difference in their business, what they were doing that was making the biggest difference. Most often what they were doing were things that I was already doing too. Sometimes there was a little tweak that made like the whole difference. But what really like made the difference most often was, instead of feeling bad about myself, I was celebrating them and I was cheering for them. And so then I like knew it's possible. So I was having a hard time booking parties. Well, this girl over here has 20 parties this month. That means it's possible. That means there are people out there. I just have to trust the process. Does that make sense? So like, use other people's success as an inspiration instead of like to beat yourself up, because if they can do it, it means it's possible. And you just have to trust the process.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything for Jill? Okay.
Thanks for your questions, guys. They like got me thinking, and I realized, oh man, Why am I focused on earning this trip? Why am I not focused on promoting people?
Yeah, it's so true. I think I found when I'm focused on promotions, everything else falls into place.
Yeah.
Because that forces me into my personal business. It forces me to recruit. It forces me to train.
Mm-hmm.
It forces me to do everything else when I'm focused on promotion.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Well, Jill, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today. This was
I'll
super
stop
helpful.
screenshotting. I forgot. I could have done that a long time ago. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. All right. Well, we definitely appreciate your time. And I think I got a lot out of this. I think everybody probably did. So thank you so much.
See you guys. Have a good weekend.
Bye.